Coming up, we've talked about the greatest years in music history. 1971, 1984. I got a candidate for you. 1965. It marked a moment when creativity, experimentation, and cultural change all collided. It was the year rock music found its voice as a serious art form. A year where a folk hero went electric and proved that lyrics could be as profound as poetry. And the two biggest bands of all time were showcasing their evolution from pop idols to groundbreaking artists. While an Americana supergroup merged folk and rock with biblical proportions, introducing the world to the jangle of the 12-string Rickenbacker. And then you had a legendary artist write one of the greatest songs ever, only to give it to a rival band. So many great stories are included in this, and so many legends are here to help me count down the 10 greatest songs of 1965. Coming up next. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you know from sad experience the greatness of pencils and cassettes together, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now, click the white button and click the bell. Also, make sure to go to professorofrock.com and sign up for our live streams. We're doing one this week. I got another countdown for you from a legendary year. One that doesn't get as much love as 1984 or 1971 or even 1966 in the same decade. But man, 1965 was a great year in music. Many of the songs that dropped in 65, they're just ageless wonders. And today, over half of these songs I'm counting down have the stories coming straight from the legends. So let's get into it. Our first song, at number 10 for our countdown, I got one of the greatest lyricists and vocalists of all time. It's The Tracks of My Tears by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. I had the tremendous honor recently of talking with Smokey about songs over his illustrious career, and he shared the story of The Tracks of My Tears. Here it is.
Eventually, I came up with the first three lines of the chorus. Take a good look at my face, and smile like I play. Look closer, it's easy to trace that you're gone and I'm still here. To trace that, no, I love you, but you don't love me. I went to a lot of those traces, man.
Yeah.
One day, like you said, I'm looking in the mirror and I don't know why. See, I'm not a songwriter who needs a certain condition, or I have to go to the mountains for 2 weeks or the desert,
Right.
isolate myself so I can write some songs. It just happens for me, man. It's a blessing. It just happens because I'm looking in the mirror and I'm not even thinking about his song at that point, but I'm looking in the mirror as I'm shaving. And the thought just came to me. What if a person had cried so much until their tears left tracks in their face?
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, oh, that's it. that chorus for my song. That's the end of that. So that's where that came from.
The Tracks of My Tears is in the Grammy Hall of Fame. It sold over 1 million copies. And it climbed to number 5 in Canada, number 16 on the Billboard Hot 100, and number 2 on the Billboard R&B chart. Perhaps the most meaningful props that Smokey, Marv, and Pete received for crafting this song is that it ranks as number 5 on the top 10 best songs of all time, voted by a panel of 20 industry luminaries, including Hal David, Paul McCartney, Brian Wilson, and Jerry Lieber. At number 9 on our 65 countdown is the ultimate tribute to the women around the world with a special nod for those in the Golden State. Talk about the Beach Boys with California Girls. Mike Love and Brian Wilson teamed up to write this iconic track. Alongside surfing and cars, girls were a recurring theme in many of the Beach Boys songs, or many of the songs that came out in the 60s.
The way they talk, they knock me out when I'm down there.
It perfectly captured the California dream that intrigued young people across the country. Not so much anymore. Here's what they told me about it. California Girls.
California Girls was probably the most inspired shuffle song. You know what a shuffle is?
Yep.
There's 88s. 88s are bump and chunk and shuffle beat is bump,
Yeah.
We got that from Bach. Johann Sebastian Bach.
Yep.
There's a song called Ode to Joy, where it goes didn't. Well, the East Coast girls. A little bit faster, you know.
A mini symphony, a pocket symphony, right?
Right.
Well, East Coast girls are hip. I really dig the styles they wear because New York, what do you call it? Fashion, right?
Yeah.
Southern girls, the way they talk, that accent, knock me out when I'm done. Now, the Midwest farmers' daughters. And Northern girls, it's cold up there, so they keep their boyfriends warm at night. And then you go to Hawaii and around the world and wish they all could be California girls. That was a result of us, a bunch of young guys out of Southern California. Here we are cruising around the world, and in every country there are these great-looking chicks, and we wish they all could be back with us in California.
In 1965, California Girls went to number 1 in Africa, went to number 2 in Canada, and rose to number 3 here on the Billboard Hot 100. Became a hit all over again in the 80s when David Lee Roth covered it. All right, we're cooking now at number 8 on our top 10 songs of 65, and I got the most played song of the 20th century with a battle between two great voices. It's You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling by the Righteous Brothers. BMI Music reports that You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling was the most played song on American radio and TV throughout the entire 20th century. This historic track was written by the prolific husband and wife writing team of Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil. Cynthia sadly passed away in 2023, but I was fortunate to sit down with her and Barry and Righteous Brother Bill Medley.
You can have, I think, as many tracks as you want. And Phil Spector, if a producer, a kid today that's producing hit records, went into a studio in 1964, 65 and watched Phil Spector produce this record, Lovin' Feelin', they would say that's impossible and I can't do it. And I won't do it. I mean, there was like 18 rhythm guys in the studio, and you have to understand he was mixing, EQing everything and mixing. So when they were done, it wasn't, well, I'll mix it later when everybody, it was probably about a 3-minute record when they first wrote it, being that fast. But when they slowed it down, it became like a 4-minute, 15-second song, which was way wrong for 1964. Unheard of.
Sure.
They had to be 2 minutes and 30 seconds or you just couldn't get it played.
We didn't stick around. We went back to New York. We weren't there for the record sessions. So then he calls to play the record for me. You know, we had heard Bill sing it, but we didn't hear him sing it so much lower. So, you know, the opening. So when he starts playing, I started screaming over the phone, Phil, you got it on the wrong speed.
You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling was almost 4 minutes long. They didn't think they'd be able to get it played, so they wrote 3:05 on the tape when they sent it to radio, and they thought if they asked any questions, they'd say it was a typo. They read it, got played, became the biggest song of all time. The Righteous Brothers' unforgettable vocal performance paired with Phil Spector's legendary wall of sound production turned You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling into a landmark classic. Song shot to number 1 in the UK and Canada, and it topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 2 weeks here in America. Coming in at number 7 on our countdown of the top 10 songs of 65, got the posthumous hit by a legend who was killed under mysterious circumstances. It's Sam Cooke, his powerful prophecy, a change is gonna come.
I know a change gonna come.
Back in 1963, tragedy hit the Cooke family when Sam's infant son tragically drowned in a swimming pool. I can't even begin to imagine the heartbreak that he must have felt. It clearly impacted the way that he approached his music thereafter. Sam's songwriting took on a deeper, more introspective tone after that. One of the most potent examples of this shift is Change is Gonna Come.
Oh, yes it will.
It reflects the serious, meaningful direction Sam's music took during those final years before his life was cut short in a bizarre and tragic way. Just months after the song was released as a single, A Change is Gonna Come was inspired by several events in Sam Cooke's life. But one of the most striking moments happened when he and his entourage were turned away from a whites-only motel in Louisiana. That experience drove Sam to write a song that captured both his personal struggles and the broader fight for equality during the civil rights movement. On October 8, 1963, while heading to Louisiana, Sam called ahead to book a room for himself and his wife Barbara at the Holiday Inn North. When they arrived, the desk clerk nervously claimed there were no vacancies. Now, Sam's brother Charles tried to keep things calm, But Sam was furious. He demanded to see the manager and refused to leave until he got an explanation. Barbara, trying to protect him, warned, "They'll kill you." Sam famously shot back, "They ain't gonna kill me because I'm Sam Cooke." Now, eventually the group left, hurling insults and honking their horns as they drove off. When they arrived at the Castle Motel downtown, the police, they were already waiting there for them. Sam and his group were arrested for disturbing the peace. In 2019, Shreveport's mayor at the time, Adrian Perkins, publicly apologized to Cooke's family and posthumously awarded him the key to the city, a long overdue recognition of the injustice that he faced that night in 1963.
Telling me don't hang around.
So get this, Sam Cooke performed A Change Is Gonna Come for the first and only time on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson on February 7th, 1964. Actually, his new manager, Alan Klein, was captivated by the song, and he convinced Sam to scrap plans to promote his latest single, Ain't That Good News. He urged him to perform Change instead. Klein believed it was the powerful statement that Sam needed to make on such a big stage. Now, Sam initially resisted. He pointed out that the album was even set to release for another month, and he didn't really have time to put together an arrangement because, the song was recorded with strings. But Klein pulled some strings, literally. He got RCA to fund a full string section for the performance. Very rare. That Friday, Sam took the stage performing A Change Is Gonna Come after Basin Street. Unfortunately, this would be the only time that Sam Cooke performed the song live. They didn't record it, leaving this historic moment lost to time. Regardless, A Change Is Gonna Come has become one of the most celebrated and impactful songs of all time, even though it wasn't a massive chart hit. The single reached number 9 on the Billboard R&B chart, but it peaked at just number 31 on the Billboard Hot 100.
A long time coming, but I know.
Not long after the song's release, Sam Cooke was shot and killed by a motel owner who claimed he was attempting to assault a young woman. His death, though, was shrouded in controversy, with many questions and suspicions swirling around the incident. At the time, Sam was a groundbreaking artist who owned his own record label and publishing company, making his untimely death all the more mysterious and all the more heartbreaking. Should do a full episode on that one.
Oh, yes it will.
Coming in at number 6, it's a folk rock song that came from the 2,600-year-old book called The Bible. It's Turn, Turn, Turn by the Byrds. Sometimes subtitled Everything There Is a Season.
There is a season, turn, turn, turn.
It was actually written by Pete Seeger in 1959. The song's lyrics, apart from the title and the final 2 lines, are almost word for word from the first 8 verses of the 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes, as found in the King James Bible. Here's what Roger McGuinn told me about this classic song.
I'd heard Pete do it because I was a big fan of Pete Seeger's.
If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning.
And then as I was a studio musician in New York, Judy Collins was doing her 3rd album and wanted to do Turn, Turn, Turn on that. And I knew it. It was, part of my repertoire as a folk singer myself. So there it was. It was great. And then after the Byrds got together, somebody asked me if I knew the song. Now, the way Pete and Judy had done it was different. They did like, to everything, turn, turn, turn.
To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a
Season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. Well, I, again, put a rock beat to it, and it came out like... To everything, turn, turn, turn.
Roger McGuinn and the Byrds' interpretation of Turn, Turn, Turn with its biblical relevance resonated deeply with fans around the world. I mean, it was a top 10 single in many countries, scoring a number 1 achievement in New Zealand and on the Billboard Hot 100, finishing 65, ranked as the 3rd biggest single on the year-end survey.
Please, I swear it's not too late.
We're at the halfway point on our top 10 songs of 65, and I've got a song here that missed the top 10, but it became the number 1 song that helped veterans when they fought in Vietnam, according to a poll some years ago. Coming in at number 5, I got We Gotta Get Out of This Place by the Animals.
Yeah, we gotta get out of this place.
We Gotta Get Out of This Place, sometimes written as We've Gotta Get Out of This Place, We've. That was a standout anthem of 1965. Just incredible. Written by Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil. brought to life by the English band The Animals, with Eric Burdon delivering electrifying vocals. Here's what they all told me about it.
You probably already knew that, but that study about Vietnam veterans, and the song that most resonated with them was "We Got to Get Out of This Place."
Yeah,
that meant so much to them.
All the way up until recently in Iraq, the British guys were reported that they were singing that song.
We were performing, we had a show in 2004 off Broadway where, I sang the hits, Cynthia Set Them Up, and we had background groups. And in the audience one time was a nurse who had spent time in Vietnam, and she wrote to us, and she wrote that every year there is a get-together, a reunion. Mm-hmm. And they all get together and they sing, "We Got to Get Out of This Place." And it's just, it was so, I had tears in my eyes. It was such a touching letter.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So great. I mean, that's when you feel that songwriting is a noble.
"We Got to Get Out of This Place" by Eric Burdon and the Animals moved all the way to number 2 in the UK and Canada, peaked here at number 13 on the Hot 100.
Girl, there's a better life for me and you.
Onward with our countdown of the top 10 songs of 65. It's the most covered song of all time. At number 4, I've got "Yesterday" by the Beatles.
Yesterday.
As I mentioned at the start of our countdown, 1965 was packed with historic songs, and "Yesterday" stands out as one of the most historic. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, it's the most covered pop song of all time. Over 3,000 recorded versions, probably even more now. For years, it also held the title of the most played song on the radio, though in 1999, BMI found that "You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling" moved ahead of it. Even so, chances are somewhere in the world right now, a version of "Yesterday" is playing. I mean, that's just the way it is.
All my troubles seem so far away.
Paul McCartney wrote this song and was the only Beatle to perform on it, making it the first time a Beatle recorded a track without the others. This moment marked a shift toward more independent ventures within the group. While John Lennon and Paul McCartney collaborated closely on the Beatles' early stuff, by 1965, most of their tracks were primarily written by one or the other, though they continued to be credited to Lennon-McCartney, right?
Oh, I believe in yesterday.
McCartney once mentioned that the melody for "Yesterday" actually came to him in a dream. He woke up one morning with it already in his head, fully fledged. At the time, he was staying in London, and luckily he had a piano right next to his bed. He went straight to it and he played it so he wouldn't forget it. Paul had this feeling that maybe he'd heard the melody somewhere before because it was so great. He was just worried that he ripped off somebody else's song, so he played it for a few people in the music world to make sure he wasn't unknowingly stealing someone else's tune. He even thought about not recording it at all. But when he found out that it was completely original, he started working on the lyrics, even giving it the placeholder title, "Scrambled Eggs." Most people know that one, right?
Oh, yesterday came suddenly.
Fast forward to May 27th, 1965. Paul was on vacation with Jane Asher in Portugal, and they were staying at a villa owned by Bruce Welch, the guitarist for The Shadows. So during a 5-hour drive, Paul started working on the lyrics. Now, Bruce later recalled that when Paul was packing to leave, he asked if he had a guitar because he was still working on the song. Bruce handed over his guitar, and that's when Paul played what would become "Yesterday."
Long for yesterday.
During the recording session, a string quartet was brought in to play on the track, marking a significant moment as one of the first pop songs to incorporate classical music elements.
Love was such an easy game to play.
Now, first, when producer George Martin suggested adding the strings, Paul said, "No way." He said, "Oh no, George, we're a rock and roll band, and I don't think that's a good idea." McCartney's Picasso of Melancholy grabbed the #1 spot on record charts in 10 countries around the globe, including the UK and the US.
In yesterday.
And, an interesting fact that may surprise you, "Yesterday" was actually nominated for Song of the Year in 1966, but instead, that Grammy went to Tony Bennett for "The Shadow of Your Smile," the love theme from the movie The Sandpiper. Very strange. Before we move on to number 3, I do have to say that on these countdowns, I only choose songs that peaked in the top 40 for the year that I'm in. It had to have come out and peaked in the top 40. But you remember that 1965 is when Rubber Soul came out. And In Your Life and Norwegian Wood were not released as singles. Therefore, they couldn't be included in my top 10. They would have made my top 10, I can tell you that.
In my life, I've loved them all. Isn't it good, Norwegian Wood?
Coming in at number 3, we've got what has to be the most recognizable first 10 seconds of a song ever. One of the greatest bass lines of the era as well. It's The Temptations with a song that always brings us sunshine on a cloudy day, My Girl.
I've got sunshine.
My Girl, of course, written and produced by Smokey Robinson and Ronald White of the Miracles, becoming The Temptations' first U.S. number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it's now considered their signature song. It's crazy. I mean, Smokey Robinson wrote one of the greatest songs ever, and he gave it away to a rival band. Here's what he and the last surviving member of the Temps, Otis Williams, told me about this classic.
That's how I started it. I was at the piano. And I started playing boom, 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 boom. And I wanted it to be that. And then I had the vocal come in. I've got sunshine, like that, you know. And so we go into the studio to record it. And we go into the studio to record it. And our lead guitarist for the band, for the Funk Brothers in the studio was a guy named Robert White. Okay. So we're running the song down for the first time. And I had Jameson. I say, okay, Jameson, I want you to play boom, 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 boom. So he starts playing that. And Robert White gets up out of his seat and starts walking around the studio playing boom, 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 boom. And then he said, oh, no, man, I'm just kidding around. I said, kidding around my ass, that's going on the record. That is a great line. So that's what, because those guys, the Funk Brothers, were such great musicians, man.
I've got a sweet.
But when Paul Reiser added the strings and horns, and then you could hear Jim ba doo dee doo 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 doo. I'm sitting there, I said, ooh, this is gonna be a big record.
My Girl skyrocketed to the top of the U.S. pop charts on March 6, 1965. Also hit number 1 on the R&B charts, and gave the Gordy label its first number 1 on the Hot 100. Coming in at the bridesmaid slot, this was tough to put at number 2. It's yet another song that broke parameters, transforming a folk hero into a rock star. At number 2, I got Bob Dylan with Like a Rolling Stone.
Like a rolling stone.
You know, when Like a Rolling Stone pops into my head, the first thing I start singing to myself is, how does it feel? I mean, Dylan really cut through to the core when he asked that question in this epic song. How does it feel to be on your own, like a complete unknown? Now, we covered this song a few months ago, but I never got to tell one of my favorite rock stories ever that's connected to this one. After this song dropped and Dylan added to his legendary folk hero status by going electric, when he plugged in, when he went full-on rock star, this pissed a lot of his disciples off. Actually, on May 17, 1966, in a concert in Manchester, England, tension was building at the show as his fans heard that he was starting to bring out an electric guitar during his recent tour. This was, of course, a massive departure from his folk music roots. His fans started to wonder if it would change his persona and his priorities to take on the issues of the day. How could Bob Dylan betray his destiny? It was one of the moments in rock that changed everything, including the man behind the mic. Okay, so Dylan walked out on stage in front of thousands of fans, as he normally did with his, his acoustic guitar and his harmonica. He played his classics, ending with Mr. Tambourine Man. The crowd loved it.
Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song to me.
So he walked out, off the stage, and then he came back on to start his second set. Only this time, he had his band The Hawks with him and a 1965 Black Fender Telecaster electric guitar. He blew the crowd away with the first 2 songs, I Don't Believe You and Ballad of the Thin Man. Just after finishing that song, all hell broke loose as a fan yelled out, "Judas," basically calling Dylan a traitor, like the man who betrayed Jesus. So Dylan strummed his guitar and he belted out, "I don't believe you. You're a liar."
I don't believe you. You're a liar.
Then he turned around and he turned up the volume, plowing the crowd with an earth-shattering rendition of Like a Rolling Stone, putting so much mustard on the line, "How does it feel?" that it was a powerful auditory middle finger aimed straight at this heckler. I mean, Dylan knew exactly who he was and what he stood for, and Like a Rolling Stone was a call to arms, especially that day. And this song's lyrics, if you really break them down, beneath the story of loss and upheaval in the song, there's a profound truth. This fall isn't just an end, it's a beginning. Stripped of pretense, free from the suffocating weight of superficiality and exploitation, there's a liberation. And losing everything, there's a chance to find something real. A life that isn't about the mask that we wear, but about authenticity, joy and unshackled freedom. It's not just a song, this is a revelation. At 6 minutes and 13 seconds, Like a Rolling Stone shattered the conventions of pop music, where radio stations would refuse to play a song that even approached the 3-minute mark. It had to be 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes.
Like a complete unknown.
Now, the label wanted Dylan to edit this song down, but his manager, Albert Grossman, told him basically to go to hell. Nothing was going to be edited from this classic song, proving that art could triumph over convention. So against the odds, Like a Rolling Stone broke through and earned massive airplay, a bold achievement in itself, especially in 1965. Even more remarkable was its success as a song overflowing with Dylan's dense, poetic lyrics, really defying the idea that commercial hits needed to be simple and concise. Dylan didn't just bend the rules, he rewrote them. Like a Rolling Stone made Bob Dylan a bona fide rock star. It was the highest charting song of his career, cruised to number 4 in the UK, number 2 in Canada, and number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Ah, what a song.
How does it feel?
Well, we're at the pinnacle of our 1965 countdown, and my number 1 pick is as ageless as the 2 musicians that composed it. Number 1 I got, I Can't Get No Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. I Can't Get No Satisfaction is pure magic. Generated by the songwriting duo of Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, it kicks off with Keith's iconic guitar riff, that unforgettable hook that completely drives the song, easily one of the greatest of all time. I mean, it shook the world. Lyrically, it's Mick Jagger channeling raw physical and emotional frustration, taking aim at everything from sexual tension to the overwhelming noise of commercialism. Even back then, classic Stones at their best. How this song was conceived, of course, the stuff of rock and roll legend. Keith Richards, half asleep, unknowingly birthed one of the most iconic riffs in music history. Only Keith Richards could write this song in his sleep. Late one night in a hazy, dreamlike state, picked up his guitar and he recorded a rough version of the riff for I Can't Get No Satisfaction on a Philips cassette player. When he played it back the next morning, he was really stunned to hear 2 minutes of acoustic guitar, the clink of a pick being dropped, and then there's 40 minutes of snoring. There are a lot of rumors about where and when this happened. However, he set the record straight in his autobiography, claiming that he was at his flat in Carlton Hill, St. John's Wood. He woke up, and there it was. Thank heavens he turned on the recorder. Now, just days later, Mick Jagger penned the lyrics poolside in Clearwater, mere hours before the band headed into the studio. The confusion only adds to the mythos of a song that defined the mid-'60s and the dream that started it all. Mick penned nearly all the lyrics, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, except for one crucial line. The unforgettable Can't Get No Satisfaction. That single phrase, born from Keith Richards' dreamy riff, became the foundation for a song that peeled back the layers of America's glossy facade. Jagger wrote about the stark duality that he saw, an America that was split between what was real and what was fake, drowning in a sea of relentless marketing. For Jagger, I Can't Get No Satisfaction became a reflection of a man desperately searching for something authentic, something true, only to find himself lost in the haze of commercialism. I mean, this song was written for the times we live in, if there ever was one. It was a frustration that he felt firsthand as the Stones toured the U.S., encountering its endless barrage of advertisements and consumer culture. Ironically, the very system that left him delusioned became one that the Stones would masterfully exploit, let's be honest, building an empire of sponsorships and merchandising that brought them untold wealth. The story of Satisfaction isn't just about rebellion, though. It's about navigating a world where the line between authenticity and artifice is constantly blurred. I Can't Get No Satisfaction, it still gives fans the fulfillment that only a great rock song can. It was a #1 smash in 15 countries, including the Stones' native UK and here on the Hot 100. Well, there you got it. The top 10 of 1965. And I'll tell you what, as far as honorable mentions go, I could do a top 10 on just those. Almost as good as this top 10. Here they are.
I got you, babe. I got you. Hang on, Snoopy, Snoopy, hang on. Papa's got a brand new bag. She's got a ticket to ride, and she don't care.
Then for Album of the Year, I got to go with Rubber Soul. For Band of the Year, giving it to the Beatles. And it may be unusual, but my Artist of the Year was Mr. Tom Jones, who had 4 top 40 hits in 65, including his breakout smash, It's Not Unusual.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone.
So what are your memories of these songs, and what's your top 10 in 1965? What do you think about these songs? Let's have a great discussion. Is 1965 the greatest year ever? It's funny, when you go and you look at all the songs, you start to change your opinion a little bit about what you thought was the top. Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of this community. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.